Another week has gone by in the NFL, which means we're getting closer to April in the NFL draft. And I'm back again with another mock draft today, but we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I also brought my friend Stone over to help me do one of these mock drafts. We did a couple during the last NFL draft, and he's back again today to help me out. And we're going to be doing a quarterback inflation draft. So there's been a lot of talk about this quarterback class, how it's not very good, one of the weaker ones in recent memory. We know all that, but teams still love taking quarterbacks in the first round because if you don't have a quarterback, you really have no chance to win. So in today's video, we're going to be going through some of these teams here in the first round that may just decide, hey, you know what? We need a quarterback. We like this guy good enough. Let's draft him. So that's kind of the method and the madness that we're bringing to this mock draft today. But Stone, we're giving you all the odds. You have the first overall pick. Who do you have the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting here?
We mentioned quarterback. It's a quarterback inflation draft. Well, it's not happening here. If this is not the Jaguars, I do think this is a quarterback. I would say that. But I say the odds are that it would have to be a quarterback-needy team. And maybe that doesn't happen with the two teams I see here. But for number one, got to be obvious, it's Travis Hunter. He is the best player in college football, should win the Heisman. One of the best just pure athletes in the draft in a long time. Can obviously play both receiver and corner. I'm not sure what he'll play more so. I've seen some stuff where he might just do corner a little bit more, but he said that he wants to do both in the NFL. So we'll see. It's been kind of unprecedented that we've had a guy consistently or relatively consistency play like both offense and defense. So we'll see. Maybe he brings that to the modern era, but Jaguars just need good players. I think the secondary would be the biggest help that they need. So if he goes to Jacksonville, he'd probably be playing more corner, but pretty easy pick here. I think it's got to be Travis Hunter.
Now the Titans at number 2, we're going to have them not go in the quarterback direction, which I know is kind of funny because we just talked about quarterback inflation, but I'm assuming that one of these teams in the top 10 is going to sign like a Sam Darnold, who's going to be a free agent after this season, to be there, maybe at least quarterback for a couple of years. Darnold's been pretty serviceable, solid this year for the Vikings. I think he could get himself another starting job. So we're going to say the Titans, you know what? They're going to go out and get Sam Darnold. They're going to address other needs. Tataroa McMillan out of Arizona, I'm going to have him go here to the Titans, who just need some more talent. They traded away D-Hop as well. They do have Calvin Ridley, and he's been okay. I don't think he's been worth the contract that they paid him. And McMillan, talk about a very talented player, super big bodies. He's got tremendous hands as well. He can be the X wide receiver in an offense. We've seen him at Arizona against some other fairly good competition, be a guy that can win on the outside. And you can't say that about a ton of the other receivers in this draft. I mentioned it before with like Luther Burden. We don't know for a fact that he can win one-on-one consistently as the go-to guy. So I think McMillan is a guy that you can say can in fact do that. He's my wide receiver 1 in this draft. And I think the Titans get themselves a very, very promising player here at number 2.
Next is going to be the New York Giants at 3. They might be even higher than this, to be honest, when we get to the end of the season, but they're at 3 right now. They just recently cut Daniel Jones per his request to leave the team, and it's got to be a quarterback. Now, when we have quarterback here, PFF has their rankings. A few other guys have their rankings. I have my rankings, but when we're going here, had some interesting stuff. MathisNFL made an interesting video that went about some connections to a certain player, to a certain team. And could we see an Eli Manning 2.0 situation that's reversed, where it's against the Giants? I don't know. Maybe, but it's a mock draft. We're going to get crazy with QB inflation. We're going to have Cam Ward be the first quarterback taken. Get interesting, to the New York Giants. He's a gunslinger, big arm, very good playmaker, just very chaotic around the pocket. Would going to the Giants, I would say if you compare it to other teams, I think if Cam Ward goes to the Giants compared to maybe the Raiders or Browns, I'd feel better about him going to the Giants. I think Brian Daboll's a good coach. They have Andrew Thomas, who's a very good franchise left tackle. They got their franchise, I think, receiver and Malik Neighbors, and I think the defensive line is very good to at least give Cam Ward a bit higher floor in terms of having more room to make mistakes. I think a quarterback that goes to the Giants, I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think it'd be pretty solid. And with Cam Ward, I do think he has a pretty high ceiling in terms of just his ability. You just got to really condense it. Got to really have it come in, and it's possible. We've seen quarterbacks succeed all different molds and types. Just look at the top. You got number 1 overall picks. You got last pick of the first round guys that were super talented. You got guys in the middle that needed to sit. You got guys that played immediately and were really raw and just kind of worked it out. All those guys have been successful. So I don't think there's one mold that you got to think of, but he's not undersized. He doesn't have a low arm. He's not super inaccurate. He's got all that good kind of stuff. So I think it's a good thing to work with, even if I know his team has not been, or maybe some people think is overrated or whatever. They're still a good team, and he's still a good quarterback. So Giants, will have them go ahead and get Cam Ward at 3 and have an interesting move that come over at 4.
Yeah, so Cam Ward, very interesting player. I think what he needs to work on is just staying in the structure of an offense and actually being able to be like a pocket passer. We kind of see that issue now with like Caleb Williams for the Bears. That's his big issue is just staying on time, going through his reads. That's what Cam Ward has to be, I guess, coached into him, because if you just let him play off structure, I mean, he's just a special talent. So I think Cam Ward definitely will be a top pick in next year's draft. But the reason the Giants are going Cam Ward here is because the Raiders, I think it's a match made in heaven that they get Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. I made a video about a couple weeks ago talking about the connections of Sanders to Las Vegas. And it goes as far as their new minority owner and Tom Brady. He's been Shedeur's mentor basically his entire career. We have Deion Sanders many times on record making the connection between the Raiders and Sanders. We have Sanders tweeting out, "Thank you, God," on Twitter every single Sunday after a Raiders loss. We even have Shedeur Sanders dapping up Mark Davis at a Las Vegas Aces game. I mean, the connections, they're just crazy. And so I think the Raiders are going to find themselves with Shedeur Sanders one way or another, whether that's being worse than the Giants and getting the higher pick, or just Shedeur saying, you know what, sorry, Giants, I want to go play for the Raiders. Do not pick me. And so that's what we're going to have playing out in this mock draft. That's the explanation. And now it's your pick again with the New England Patriots.
Next, we got New England. They already have their franchise quarterback, obviously, with Drake May. At least they hope. And with the things that they kind of need, obviously, defense has been a little disappointing to what you would expect, but I think they can still get better. I don't think they need to use the 5th pick on that. When I look here, I'm just kind of looking at receiver or offensive line, and I think just between those two, you take the best player on the board, and in my opinion, that is Will Campbell. He is not as good, I would say, as other like the for sure franchise left tackles that you've had in previous classes, but he's still very good. He's very athletic for his size, 6'6", 320 pounds. He is very technical with his hands, which is very good, something that you want. His arm length is a little bit shorter than you would like, so maybe he kicks to guard a little bit, kind of like Talisi Fuanga did with the Saints when he was at Oregon State. But I think Campbell it's still longer than that, so I think he'll still probably be good at tackle. I think he could play left or right tackle, whichever one Drake May needs, and it's pretty simple. Just get the best player available, whether it's receiver or offensive line, whatever they have on their board. I think it's Will Campbell, so we'll have them go Will Campbell here.
Next up is the Jets. The Jets, man, the Jets. They have had a miserable season, and they're starting over. Fired Joe Douglas, fired Robert Saleh, and I think they're about to fire Aaron Rodgers as well this offseason. So give me a quarterback here. We talked about quarterback inflation. We're going to have our third go here in the top 10. Pretty big debate on who the third quarterback will be. It could be Carson Beck. I don't think so. His stock has dropped a ton this year. Maybe Quinn Ewers if he wins like the national championship. But how about Jalen Milroe from Alabama? A very interesting player that I think the Jets could maybe rally behind, get their fan base excited again. Milroe, he needs some development as a passer. There's no doubt about it. It's kind of like Lamar Jackson a little bit when he was coming out of Louisville. He's one of the most electrifying runners in the entire country. That is Milroe. I mean, he's just such a powerful runner. He has great speed as well for his size, and he can take the hits and contact that comes with being a running quarterback due to his, I guess, just strength as a player. But he does need to be a bit more consistent from the pocket, going through reads, being a little bit more accurate. But he throws a nice deep ball down the field. He has some good athleticism. And we've seen quarterbacks just like this go inside the top 10 that do have some questions about like their overall talent, how good they can be. I mean, we saw even last year with like JJ McCarthy. He was somebody that you saw the talent, but not necessarily the college production. How was he going to translate? So Milroe going number 6 to the New York Jets.
Next, we have the Cleveland Browns. They could be a team looking at quarterback as well, but I do think in terms of realistic guys that could go in the top 7. None of these guys are screaming at me. Maybe Quinn Ewers, if a team loves Drew Aller. Carson Beck, maybe. I don't think so. Garrett Nussmeier, we'll see. But Quinn Ewers would be the one that you would think of, but I don't want to have him here. For the Browns, I think if McMillan fell here, that would be awesome for them. Maybe if they have a higher pick, they could go grab him. But I'm going to go ahead and take Kelvin Banks Jr. I do think that whoever's playing behind them, whether it's Jameis, who's been playing really good and they should definitely keep, I think that he needs to be the starter for next year no matter what. They've been able to make it work with the receivers that they've had. Jerry Jeudy, they obviously invested a lot into. Cedric Tillman's been good. Elijah Moore has actually kind of produced. And they have good tight end, obviously, in David Njoku. So I think they can get receiving guys later if they want to go crazy and just, hey, Nick Chubb is, just not really what he is anymore. Let's go ahead and take Ashton Genty and do it. Hey, sure, maybe go ahead. But we'll take Kelvin Banks here, who might be the best tackle in the class. Has some of the highest pass blocking grades. He's very technically sound. Only thing is his size in terms of his height. He's only 6'4". His speed is not what you would love, but he's just produced and been very good technically. Kind of like Peter Skronsky last year or 2 years ago. Just been very good. He's shorter, so maybe he kicks inside to guard. But I know the Browns seem like they have a lot of offensive linemen, but a lot of them either haven't been healthy, they rotate in, or they haven't really produced. Like Jedrick Wills has not really been that good, and he was also on the last year of his deal. So I know he's a former first-round pick, but hasn't really produced the past few years, and they're probably going to move on from him. So go ahead and get Kelvin Banks Jr. for, hey, you're going to have to wait out this Watson contract at least another year or two. Let's go ahead and just build this offense around and make it better to where when a quarterback comes in, he'll have a franchise potential tackle that can help him out. And we can maybe figure out some of these other issues later on in the draft when they're not as valuable. So we'll go Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas for the Browns.
The Carolina Panthers at number 8 could go in a number of different directions. I don't think it's going to be quarterback. There's been a lot of conflicting reports there. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think the defensive side of the ball is where the Panthers need to attack. Their defense has been abysmal this year. I think offensively, they spent most of their draft capital and money in free agency on that side of the ball to just kind of see what they have in Bryce Young and just kind of giving Canales some ammo on that side of the ball. But I think here with their first round pick, they need to go on defense. And I'm going to go Abdul Carter from Penn State. He has really shot up draft boards. Before this year, he was kind of switching between like off-ball linebacker and then also being a pass rusher. This year, he's been a full-time defensive end, and he's been producing a ton. Had a couple of sacks against Ohio State as well. Now, he's a guy that is very fast off the edge. He's got some good pass rush moves as well. I compared him a little bit to Chop Robinson of last year's draft. The difference is Carter has a lot more tools in his toolbox, because the thing with Chop was he has good speed, but he doesn't have many counter moves to actually get to the quarterback. Abdul Carter has those. He also has the production that Chop Robinson did not. And I think that's why Carter's going to be a top 10 pick and why Chop Robinson was the back half of the first round. So Abdul Carter, really big fan of his game. Think is going to be maybe the top pass rusher drafted in this class. And the Panthers get much needed help off the edge.
As a Panthers fan, that would be a perfect scenario for them. That's definitely a position that they need. Obviously, with Brian Burns being gone, can't have Jadeveon Clowney there for too long. So love that pick there, Mathis. 9 for the Cowboys. This is pretty easy. It's either Mason Graham or Ashton Gentry. One of those two. Obviously, one the best running back and one the best interior defender. My head says Mason Graham. My heart says Ashton Gentry. We are doing a fun mock draft. Quarterbacks are going high. It's the beginning of the year. Just go ahead and take Ashton. I mean, he is obviously insanely. I don't need to tell you how talented he is. Go look at his production. It's literally insane. Heisman worthy. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to win it just because of the two-way play of Travis Hunter that's been going on. But I think if Mason falls right here, or if Ashton falls right here, because it's kind of weird of where he's going to go with maybe a team falling in love with him. I could see him going even higher. Maybe he could fall down if teams just don't value running backs a ton. But I think this really fits, to be honest, if he's a Cowboy. He just gives them that Zeke feel that they had way back when. But I mean, Ashton's just definitely more talented than Ezekiel Elliott was coming out, and Zeke was a very good prospect. It gives Dak room to breathe, because I just don't think you can really win with him throwing a ton. I just don't think that's a winning formula. Just trotting Dak out there, say, hey, go throw us this win. He's going to be so interesting to watch. Just him putting up the most insane stats in college with a lot of stacked boxes, how that's going to produce in the NFL. I think either way, he's a generational running back prospect. Obviously, with the likes of Bijan, they have different play styles, but those types of impact guys, which I know Bijan's rookie year wasn't, what people hoped, but right now, I think he's a top 3 running back for sure. And I think it won't be long before Ashton gets to that level as all these other running backs, kind of get older and fall off. So Cowboys, go back, get some actual running backs there because you don't have any, and I'd say why not go ahead and get the star here. If it's not this, it's Mason Graham, but we'll go ahead, get the fun pick, Ashton Jeanty to the Cowboys.
And the New Orleans Saints, they are very happy that the Cowboys went running back because now they have their pick of the Michigan players, Mason Graham or Will Johnson. Easily both could be top 5 players in this draft. I'm going to go Will Johnson, though, from Michigan, as the Saints just traded away Marshawn Lattimore to the Washington Commanders, who hasn't even played a snap for them yet, which is kind of crazy after 3 weeks. But Will Johnson, he is just a tremendous cornerback prospect. If Travis Hunter was not in this draft, Will Johnson would easily be cornerback number 1. And in most drafts, Will Johnson would be cornerback 1. He's got good size. He's got good athleticism. There's really not much to not like about him. He's just a very good player in the Saints. They have a need there in the secondary. I don't think the Saints will go quarterback here. They still have to pay Derek Carr for the next couple of years because of how they maneuver the money around. So Will Johnson, he's going to end up in New Orleans, and the Saints get a very nice chess piece in the back of their defense, and I think a shutdown corner.
Bengals, this one's easy. If he falls here, they snag him up. I don't know if he will, but he did now. Mason Graham to the Bengals. They need a lot of defensive help, and obviously with Will Johnson going, I think they'd be fine to get either one of the star Michigan defenders. It's almost a guarantee he's just going to be good. Just take it as that. He's going to be very good. He's a great run defender. He's still capable pass rusher. He's reliable. He's going to help a ton in the interior. BJ Hill's been the only guy, at least in the interior of the defense, that's done anything aside from Trey Hendrickson, which we don't know if he's going to be there next year. I mean, they're going to have to decide. I would keep him for sure. But other than that, there's been no one really producing on that D-line, and they've been kind of gouged in the run game. So go ahead and take Mason Graham, a for sure thing here for Cincinnati, who needs as much help on defense as possible to take advantage of the superstar quarterback play that they've been getting.
The Miami Dolphins are up next, and I had this fit in my last mock, and I think this is a good fit. Again, Malachi Starks from Georgia. He is just one of the best overall players in this draft. The thing with him, though, is just because of his position, I don't think he's going to be picked where he probably should be. I mean, I think Starks is like a top 5 player in this draft. He's a very good safety. He reminds me of Brian Branch, who went to the Lions and is a huge part in why that secondary got revamped and is pretty good now. So I think Starks could have that same impact on a defense, and the Dolphins, they need a safety. Javon Holland, he's going to be a free agent after this season. They signed Jordan Poyer on a 1-year deal. He has not been good this year. They need some help in the back end of their defense. And Malachi Starks, he just brings that element that the Dolphins are missing. So I think they get a very good player to help revamp that defense that has a few holes on it and get one of the best pure players in this draft.
Next up for the Buccaneers, their offense honestly has looked pretty good. Offensive line, they've had a few guys that have been playing better. Their receivers, they'll come back. I think if you want to maybe look at some guys, Luther Burden might be interesting here. If you obviously have an old, Mike Evans, totally forgot their best receiver's name, Mike Evans, coming back from injury, Chris Godwin coming back from injury, who's also on a contract year. So I think Luther Burden could be interesting, but I would prefer them get someone later. This is just on the D-line. I went back and forth between Nick Scorton and Micah Williams, but we're going to go ahead and go Nick because I just think he's the better player. Both of them are guys who they need, though. They are people that can play into 3-4. They can be on the interior, but more so just on the side of Vita Vea, so they can play the defensive end in a 3-4, but Nick is also light enough to where he can maybe move out to edge rusher on the outside. He's pretty balanced, can defend the run and the pass in terms of pass rushing, but more so he does fit in their system. Both of them do. So if Nick maybe goes higher, let's say to the Bengals, if Mason Graham goes above, or if the Dolphins take someone different, I think Micah Williams could fit here. But I think Nick is is good, balanced, good strength, size, a lot of moves at his disposal. So good pick here for the Buccaneers.
The Bears, another pretty easy pick, I would say. It's the offensive line. It's been very, very bad this year. I think let up like 9 sacks to the New England Patriots. And if you haven't seen their defensive talent, that's a really bad look to give up 9 sacks to the Patriots. So they need help on the offensive line. I think Josh Simmons from Ohio State is who I'm going to have go here. He's just a very experienced player, has started multiple years at OSU, and he's got good size, 6'5", over 300 pounds. They just need somebody that can step in right away and be a good offensive lineman. And I think Josh Simmons fits that mold and can help Caleb Williams out and that offense, because the next step for them is getting better offensive line help, because they have the weaponry. DJ Moore, they have Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift. They need some help up front. I think Josh Simmons provides that. Probably doesn't have the highest upside of some of these other guys that are on the board, but I just like the floor of Simmons and what he can provide right away. So Simmons going to the Bears here at 14.
Next up, we have the Colts. They're kind of interesting. I think they would have loved to have Malachi Starks. He would have been perfect for them if he was available. That's who I definitely would have taken. But in terms of guys who are available and realistic, I think obviously everyone looks at tight end. But I think the thing with tight end for them is Colston Loveland is, yes, very good. But in terms of their offense, Loveland's like a hybrid slot tight end kind of guy. And with Downs already being there, and they would probably prefer a bigger inline tight end because they have a running quarterback and obviously rely on the run game a lot. You could have him there, but it's almost not really looking at kind of what they directly need. And while there are other tight ends on the board that I do really like that they could take, like Harold Fannin Jr., Tyler Warren, I don't think they're really worth here. So we'll go ahead and go Jalon Walker for them, linebacker out of Georgia. I think their linebacking group needs a lot of help after losing guys like Bobby Okereke. He is more of like a kind of blitzer, so he will kind of do better in that role as just kind of an aggressive attacker, but he's a good tackler. He's a little bit raw, but I know that Colts love their raw Georgia athletes, and Georgia gets all the 5 stars, and all the 5 stars are all the athletes. So he would fit with what the Colts generally do, and if he can develop in terms of, being able to identify different guys in terms of what the Colts do, they have kind of 2 inline linebackers, so one of them tends to maybe blitz, the other one tends to stay back. If he can learn how to do that to where when he's on the field, they know he's not going to be the one blitzing every single time, so if he can learn to maybe kind of play a little bit less in terms of insane aggressive and being able to actually do a better job in covering, or being a little bit better of a run defender, this would be a great pick for them in terms of paying out, but he's obviously a bit more raw right now. Great athlete, so I think it fits with what the Colts would pick.
The Seattle Seahawks, the offensive line is a major hole in this team, but again, this is quarterback inflation mock draft, and the Seahawks have been a team that have been kind of sniffing around the quarterback market here or there, and there were also some rumors that they tried to trade up and get Josh Allen in the 2018 NFL draft. And there's one prospect in this quarterback draft that I think has a very high upside, very raw as a player, not a ton of production, but somebody that I think during the offseason, kind of, I guess, during the combine, during the pro days, I could see his stock really rise just due to his physical characteristics. And that's Drew Aller of Penn State. And I'm going to have him go here at number 16. Aller, he's over 6'5". He's got an absolute howitzer of an arm. He's not the fastest guy laterally in the world, but he does have some movement ability as well. And when you're a team like the Seattle Seahawks who have been picking in this range, you're not going to get the best quarterback prospects or the most refined quarterback prospects in like the middle of the first round. And that's where they've been, because Geno Smith is a serviceable quarterback, an upper echelon type of quarterback, but he's not going to get the Seattle Seahawks into consistent playoff wins every single year. And I think this is their chance to take a shot on a quarterback who has a very high upside, can sit and wait behind Geno as he develops, but has all the talent that they like. And for the Seattle Seahawks, who have been looking for a quarterback like Josh Allen in 2018, I think Aller is a good fit.
Next for the Rams, I think this one's pretty easy. Going to be offensive line. A few guys to pick from here, but mainly we're going to go Wyatt Milam out of West Virginia. Had kind of a breakout year this year. I don't really know what's going to happen with Rob Havenstein. He might retire. They need some more, I think, help on the O-line than other teams, obviously, because you have a guy like Stafford. So while you may think, hey, they spent a lot of money there, they've used a lot of draft capital there, in terms of free agency, they literally signed 2 guards. I still think they need to address it just to be safe, because you don't know what's going to happen. And a few guys have gotten injured on the O-line. That's been the biggest thing, including you think about the receivers that the Rams have had injured. Well, the O-line has been just as hurt. So I think getting another good, talented player in there who's had a breakout year this year would help them out, especially when they have Stafford back there. So we'll go Wyatt there.
At 18, the 49ers, they have a need in the secondary. I'm going to go Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. They're probably going to be losing Charvarius Ward in free agency. And so the 49ers, they love attacking their needs in the draft. And Morrison, he's a fairly young player, only 20 years old currently, has okay size for a cornerback. He's over 6 feet tall. I think the main thing with him is his versatility, can play in the slot, can play outside, and he's got some good physicality to help in the run game as well. And for the 49ers, who are a physical defense, I think Morrison's a good fit there and could be a nice, replacement for Ward in the back end of their defense.
Next, for the Broncos, I kind of like this marriage a little bit more. We're going to go Colston Loveland to the Denver Broncos. This is a really good fit. He, like I said, is more of a hybrid slot/tight end, which the Broncos, he would be able to play that role there. He's really reliable, only 2 drops on 79 targets. He's very young, only going to be 21 years old, and I think this offense just needs to get more weapons. I think they have Cortland Sutton, and outside of that, it's a lot of meh. Nothing crazy has really worked out so far, at least. So Colston would bring a little bit more explosiveness and a guy who's very young and can fit the role that they would want him to play with a lot of the other tight ends they already have that can be more traditional inline tight ends, where Colston can kind of be a hybrid back there. So we'll go Colston Loveland for Denver.
The Atlanta Falcons, they need help pass rushing. They need to get after the opposing quarterbacks. I'm going to go Mykel Williams from Georgia. He's just a monster. He's 6'5". He's over 220 pounds. He's got freakishly long arms. I think he could be a player that's molded into a very, very good pass rusher at the next level. I think his main issue is he's not the greatest. He doesn't have the greatest get off. He doesn't have a ton of pass rush moves. And that's something that's going to have to be worked on if he wants to reach his full potential. But in terms of his size and just his freakish, just God-given nature, I think Mykel Williams is just a first-round prospect. And for the Falcons, who need some help, and they love taking players that are in the state of where they play, I think that Mykel Williams is a good match for the Falcons here.
For the Arizona Cardinals, they just need defensive line very badly. They do run a 3-4, so it'd have to be someone that can fit in the interior. There's a few guys there. I think PFF's D-line grades, I think, are a little bit wonky right now. There's a few guys down here that I think could definitely move up, and I really thought about taking. But in terms of the main guy, we're going to go ahead and take Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. He's one of the more versatile D linemen in the class, which I think would fit because he could play anywhere on that D line, and they just need someone to go anywhere. So we'll go ahead and have Shamar go ahead and do that for them. He's 6'6", with really good speed for someone who's 290 pounds, great run defender, but it can also pass rush. He does a very good job pass rushing for the interior, and that's what you want. Just get someone who can get pressure on the interior. Interior guys aren't going to be the ones rushing out, snagging up all these sacks. You want a guy who can bring pressure, but mainly be able to stop and stuff the run, and Shamar Stewart can do that and maybe do it kind of at an underrated level, in my opinion. So I think this would be a pretty sneaky good pick for Arizona.
For the Commanders, I think they go tackle. I'm going to go Cameron Williams from Texas. Now, I don't know if he would be immediately starting. They do have Andrew Wiley and a guy they drafted, I think, from TCU in the 3rd round last year. So maybe Williams slides into guard, but he does have that capability. And what he provides is just great physical characteristics. It's what really, if you're an offensive tackle, that is the biggest reason you're getting drafted in the 1st round. He's got great size. He's got very good arm length. And he does have the versatility to play inside. He's played he's played all of his snaps at right tackle at Texas, so that could be a spot where he is just a plug and play right tackle for Jaden Daniels. But I think if they do want to stick with Wiley or their 3rd round pick from a year ago, maybe Williams can also slide into one of the guard positions. But overall, just getting offensive line help for their most prized possession asset in Daniels.
Next up, Houston. Similar to the Cardinals, they need someone on the D-line, more so in the interior of the D-line. I know they have Will Anderson and Hunter that they have rushing the passer. But on the inside, they get gouged in the run game. They need someone in the interior. And I don't know why he's so low, because if you watch the game and even look up stats, which is pretty easy to do, he's been playing much better than this, and he should be going up. So don't just take PFF's grade as gospel. It's Derek Harmon out of Oregon. He is the biggest one I think PFF needs to update. He's been playing really well as of late, arguably been one of the best defensive interior players so far. 34 hurries from the inside. Again, that's what you want a defensive interior player to do, be able to get hurries and pressures on the quarterback from the interior to where he has to move backwards. And if you need extra help, your edge rushers will go ahead and, you'll be the main guy that did the sack. He'll just be the guy that brought him down, but you're the one that brought the pressure and made the quarterback move out. And that's Derek Harmon to a T. One of the best pass rush win rates from the inside. The defensive inside for Houston's not been good, and he was a solid run defender beforehand, but this year he's kind of opened up his pass rushing. So Derek Harmon, a name you should know, will have him go to the Houston Texans.
The Ravens, I think the biggest weakness of their team this year has been their secondary, and I think Siobhan Revel out of East Carolina is a good fit. He just kind of reminds me of a Baltimore Raven, a very physical and lengthy corner. He's over 6'3". The issue with him is he is coming off of an ACL injury he suffered, I think like week 4, week 3 of this college football season. But Revel is just somebody that I think could step in, kind of be the future with Nate Wiggins as the 1-2 tandem in the secondary for the Baltimore Ravens. And I just think I really want to go after these teams' weakness here, especially when we don't really know how teams are going to attack free agency right now. So I think Revel's a good fit, and the Ravens get another piece in the back end of their defense to pair with Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey, and Nate Wiggins, their first-round pick from last year.
Next, for the Chargers here, they're kind of interesting. I think they are probably going to be looking at D-line. I know tight end is there as the team need, but to be honest, they don't need to be drafting a tight end here at 25. I know there are some talented players here, but I think it'd be better if they get someone else, especially when there's a guy that Jim Harbaugh would love to go grab, and that's Kenneth Grant, another D lineman out of Michigan. We're seeing like the back half of those just Michigan, obviously, players that were on that great team. And Kenneth Grant, Jim Harbaugh is lauded about his athleticism. He's very versatile, can play over the A or B gap. And on that D-line, they have some guys that have been playing well, like Poona Ford and everything, but some of those guys are free agents, and I don't know exactly how much they really are willing to pay them. And in terms of just other guys on the defensive line, they're kind of getting older. Joey Bosa, obviously you have Khalil Mack, who's getting older, and they have been kind of in and out of the lineup. So you could look at pass rusher here for sure, depending on how the D-line go. It is a great D-line class, by the way. So I know you see a lot of D-linemen here. That's because it's a very good D-line class. But we'll go ahead and go Kenneth Grant for the Chargers.
For the Green Bay Packers, I'm going to go Ariante Ursary from Minnesota. He's a guy that's been starting there for a few years now, has good experience. Another guy that, I keep saying this, great size, 6'6", over 320 pounds. But for him, he's actually has some decent mobility to him. I think he can be an asset in the running game. And for the Packers, who utilize kind of that West Coast scheme, getting a tackle that does have some good movement skills is a very big thing that they need out of their tackles. So I think Ursary is a good fit in Green Bay, and they get more help on the offensive line.
Next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They could obviously look at wide receiver. I think that might be the biggest thing, maybe tackle. But this is a QB-happy draft, and I think in terms of, hey, what might happen, if we're doing a QB-happy draft, they could be going and looking for a quarterback because Justin Fields and Russell Wilson aren't tied at the hip to them. And in terms of looking at the quarterbacks here, the only one that I think would be realistic at this point, while, yes, Carson Beck, Garrett are both there as well, we'll go ahead and go Quinn Ewers for sure, a guy that was looked to be one of the top picks kind of earlier at the beginning of the year. Fell down just because of injuries, I would say, and slight play kind of stuff. But I still think he's a good prospect. The biggest thing would just be injuries. That'd be the only concern. And his size is not bad. But honestly, when you compare him, he's not too far off from Bo Nix. The size is kind of similar. I'd say Quinn is just better at getting the ball down the field than Bo Nix was. Bo Nix was kind of more of a better game manager from the short intermediate range. I would say Quinn's better deep ball. Not too far off in terms of play style from Cam Ward that we have. I would say just obviously the health has been the biggest thing, and it maybe doesn't have as much of an arm, but he's still very young. I think people forget. He's only going to be 22 going in, so still very young. If they want to take him, he's got a lot of talent, and he can come in and maybe sit behind a guy that they do like. If they want to bring Russ or Fields back and have them say, hey, this is it for you. Like, hey, here you go, man. You're the starter right now, and let Quinn sit. That's fine. It's okay to let QBs sit, guys. We don't need to play them immediately right at the gate. Like the Seahawks getting Drew Aller, I would love that. I think that'd be great for them. So we'll have Quinn Ewers go to the Steelers at 27.
The Minnesota Vikings, they've been a very popular team to take a running back, and I think in my last mock I had them take Quinshad Judkins from Ohio State. I'm going to have them go Omarion Hampton here, though, from North Carolina. A very physical runner. He's going to have back-to-back 1,500-yard seasons for UNC, which is pretty unbelievable. I feel like he's not really talked about a ton. But Hampton, over 6'1", he's over 220 pounds. I mean, just a very physical runner. I think just another weapon for J.J. McCarthy. Aaron Jones, he's getting up there in age a little bit. He's kind of been dealing with some injuries here throughout the season. He's not extended long-term for the Vikings. So I think a running back is a pretty good luxury pick for them. Late in the first, when they don't really have a ton of needs across their team, maybe offensive line you could go here, but with all of the other top tackle prospects off the board and really the top offensive line prospects, I don't know if you really want to take a pure guard at pick number 28, but yeah, I'm going to go Mario and Hampton here. Really fun player, and the Vikings get their, I guess, quote-unquote rookie quarterback, another weapon.
Eagles, we already know what they're going to do. They always go on the D-line, and for that, you might be looking at James Pierce, but we're going to go Princely Umamilian. He honestly should be higher, to be honest, in PFF stuff. He's had a great year this year. They do need some help out on the edge. Brandon Graham won't be there very long. He's been one of the most productive edge rushers so far. He's kind of produced what people thought James Pierce was going to produce like this year. Great athlete. He's a bit lighter, but I think he could fit like in a heavy rotational pass rushing kind of group because they do rotate their guys out a lot. And I think people watching, obviously they do think of Pierce as the guy who was kind of back there in terms of, hey, this is the top pick. He's good, but I think don't be afraid to have people that have been playing better and maybe are similar athletes move up. So I think Princely is just also a little bit better versus the run than Pierce is. So we'll have the Eagles go. We'll predict a little bit ahead, and we'll have Princely be a first-round pick here.
The Buffalo Bills, I want to go somewhere on the defensive side of the ball, but Luther Burden here. He's still on the board. I don't know how we still have him. It's just kind of remarkable. We really just, with all these quarterbacks going, and then just a lot of the needs for these teams, not many squads need wide receiver help. And so I think Burden, he may fall in the draft. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be to like pick 30, but I think the Bills here in this mock, if Burden is on the board, they're just going to take him. Give Josh Allen another weapon. As I was stating a little bit earlier about Burden, I don't know if he can be like the X wide receiver in an offense, but the Bills last year, they drafted Keon Coleman. So Burden could be kind of the number 2 guy. And after the catch, if you get the ball in Burden's hands, he is just unbelievable. He's kind of like almost a Shakir type of guy after the catch who the Bills have as their slot wide receiver. So you bring Shakir, Burden, Keon Coleman. I mean, that would be one of the best receiving corps in the league. So I think the Bills here, if they had this opportunity, would be very happy to get Josh Allen another weapon. And with Burden, just tremendous value here late in the first. That's the route I'm going to go.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at last year, Ladd McConkey, Adonai Mitchell, we thought these guys were first-round picks. They didn't end up being that. That doesn't mean they're bad. It's just some teams prioritize different stuff. I think the Steelers could definitely look at receiver as well. But, yeah, guys fall, Here for the Chiefs, my last pick, we're going to go ahead and take the Travis Kelce replacement in Tyler Warren. Now, they don't play the same thing, but he's been very, very good this year. He is elite in every tight end receiving metric, 1.5% drop rate, near the top in contested catch rate, yards per route run. He's a great athlete, very good route runner, very smart. Actually, a former high school quarterback. He hasn't been playing tight end for that long, so I think he can only get better. And who else is better to learn from than Travis Kelce? He's a different player in terms of the type of guy that Kelce is, whereas they both can play tight end, but one might be a little more better, kind of as maybe a more inline tight end than Kelce. I would say, but Kelsey could still play that. I think Kelsey's a little bit bigger. Again, he's different, not the same, but will come into a great situation, and who better to learn from and develop from a guy who had an amazing breakout year, hasn't been playing quarterback that long, great stats. I think this might be the sneaky steal of the draft that Kansas City went and got Tyler Warren. Maybe if all goes right, they could get their Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce replacement in back-to-back into the first-round drafts. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you never know.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty crazy pick. And with the Lions wrapping out the draft, I'm going to go James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. He's a guy that has tremendous get-off. He's very fast, great athleticism. It's just his size and frame is in question. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He can kind of get moved in the run game, and he needs some development in terms of just his overall pass rushing moves. And we talk about it a lot with these defensive edge players that go late in the first. They're picked because of their athletic traits and kind of their size, and that's why Pierce is going to go here to the Lions, who need some more pass rushing help. They do have Aiden Hutchinson, one of the best pass rushers in the league, but he shattered his leg, and we don't know how he's going to come back. And even if he is back, you always want to have more and more pass rushers. You can't just have one guy to solely rely on, because your defense sometimes just needs a little bit more help. And so James Pierce Jr., good fit in Detroit. I think he could be developed there fairly nicely, and that is going to round out our mock draft of quote-unquote quarterback inflation. I think we had 5 go in the first round, which is kind of unbelievable. I don't think that's going to happen in April, but this is just a fun exercise to see how things could kind of play out if, in fact, some teams got desperate. So this is the final look at the mock draft. Let us know in the comments section down below what you think about it. How do you think we did? Do you think your team in this mock took a player that you agree with? Do you think your team could be one of the quarterback hungry teams? Let us know what you think. And I'll have Stone's links in the description of this video as well. We did a video on his channel talking about our playoff predictions and kind of reviewing them from what we did earlier in the season. So go check that out if you are interested. And yeah, so thank you, Stone, for coming on. And hopefully we can continue to do more of these as we get closer to the draft, because it's only going to get more ramped up from here.
Yep, can't wait.
But subscribe to the channel if you are new. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.